So the engineers are supposed to be great at engineering, but to have a thriving career and make an impact, having only hardcore tech skills is not enough. Soft skills play an even important role. Soft skills is not just about speaking well or writing good emails, but they go well beyond that. To discuss this in detail, we have with us Shashank sir, who is an 8-time successful founder and currently running his own venture fund and an active investor in health tech, ed tech, e-commerce and mobility startups. Basically, thank you so much, Shashank, for doing this. It really means a ton. Basically, before we jump into the soft skills part of things, I would request you to share a quick snippet of your journey. Over to you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Arpit. You're very kind. You guys put me on pedestal, but it's like any other story. There are hundreds and thousands of such people. And my journey has been, starting a tech company, which was an ISP, then starting telecom companies, ASP companies, which now are called SaaS. And then I took some time off, traveled the world. Then I started working for a very large pharma company because I wanted to have some corporate experience. Systems integration company, Tech Mahindra, as you heard, GlaxoSmithKline, IQVIA, and on and on. And that's what I do. I love sharing what I've learned. And for longest while, I used to be consumer of all the media. But last 2, 3, 4 years, I like very openly sharing. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Superb. that's far too many things that you have done in your life. I hope I at least do only 10% of yours, and I'm more than happy with that.
I hope that you do 10 times as I do, because young people have many more tools now.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, sir. Okay, so let's address the biggest elephant in the room: soft skills. Soft skills basically, according to me, soft skills is the worst word that primarily someone could have assigned to this. As soon as you hear the word soft, it implies that, oh, it's not so important, right? And which is exactly where the pain point starts to kick in, because people don't give enough importance to that, right? So let's start with this. Like what's your key definition of soft skills? How do you see soft skills on what levels, and how do you weigh them? And then we'll jump into each one of them. Yeah.
Sure. So, you are right in terms of like soft skill kind of have a connotation where it's not as important. However, if you think about it, the other way to put this is soft skill is you must have skills. So whether you can do engineering or not, but you must have the other skills. So for example, if you go to a restaurant and you are with your boss, or you are with somebody that you really put high regard for, do you only focus on them? Do you or also focus on the servers to you? If server comes and brings a plate to you, do you say thank you? It's important. And those are kind of skills. Those are basic skills, must have skills, irrespective whether you are rich or poor, whether you are an MBA or not an MBA, whether you're just starting out or whether you are very, very accomplished. Those kind of skills are what I call basic skills, and I think some people call them soft skills.
That's an excellent point, because this is so underrated. Like the kind of situation that you put me in, and I was just thinking like if I'm so engrossed in the communication and I don't say thank you to the waiter, it might sound, or it would definitely seem rude. God, this is interesting. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Specifically talking with respect to engineers, basically one of the most specific things that people say that, hey, I need to have a problem solving skill. Now this, most engineers think that, hey, it's more of the data structures, algorithm, system design, all of this needs to know. Is that really the problem solving skills? And in general, if I were to see it, for me, problem solving skills is not just knowing the hardcore tech skills, but more about having that right attitude towards that. I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Absolutely. So problem solving is more an attitude rather than a skill. So, and generally it comes to all of us when we are children. So as a childhood, your parent will say, hey, by the way, can you help your younger sibling to do something? Can you help them tie your shoes, right? Or can you do any task around the house? Or can you go get something from the market? And then when you look at the situation and you figure out what do I need to do, or if there is a problem, if there is a toy broken, do you first despair and then start solving? Or you go back to the first principle, or how was it built? Or do you pick up an instruction manual first? There are multiple ways to solve this. But that kind of builds as to kind of people we are. If your parent always said, I'm only going to ask you to build this if you have picked up an instruction manual first, then you will grow up always picking up the instruction manual first.
Yes.
If your parents or your teachers have told you, this is the problem, I don't care how you solve it, you go and solve it, and you have been the kind of person who always called a friend and say, hey, I'm on a problem, how do I solve it? That means you're always a collaborative and team worker. If you always went in yourself and tried to figure out, and if you were failing again and again and you never asked for help, that means you were a lone wolf, you'd never asked for help. You grow up to become a person who doesn't ask for help. There are so many ways to look at this. And that's where I tell a lot of engineers and young people that attitude of how you solve a problem. Any problem can be solved in multiple ways. But you should look at what kind of problem requires single effort, what kind of problem requires asking for help, what kind of problem requires looking at an instruction manual. If you got a Lego set, it's easy. Pick up the instruction manual and you can pick a Lego set, right?
Yeah.
But if you're picking up an algorithm, sometimes if you're stuck and you're getting the same result, the best is to ask for help.
True. This is so interesting. Now I've started to contemplate my own thoughts. Like, am I a lone wolf? Because I feel so. I am very scared of asking for help. And for me, it is something that I am right now working on, that it's okay to ask for help. In most cases, I tend to be the lone wolf and just keep grinding it through. And now I started to think about my own journey. Thanks for that. Oh, brilliant. Okay, but this is so true. Like, there are so many engineers which and they tend to put it under a blanket saying, hey, I'm an introvert, I won't go and ask for help. And basically, according to me, this is a very lame excuse of you not having, or like, you may think that primarily you are actually respecting others' time. But when I put it into the entire context, you are not just wasting your time, you might be missing out on your project delivery, your team velocity is getting affected and whatnot. Like, people simply think of their own personal output and not team's output. And sometimes it's just easy to ask for someone's help to ensure that you meet your deadline. Eventually, that would transfer into your team's success and you become a better engineer overall.
Also, you mentioned about introvert, right? A lot of the time, these labels are not designed by our brain. They are designed by outside people. And if we hear our teachers saying it, our parents saying it, our society, our friends saying it, then we accept it that is what we are. And that is where I always challenge people that I guarantee you can tell me anybody who's labeled as introvert and I can give them a situation where they will absolutely behave the opposite of what the introverts do. And you can pick an extrovert and I can put them in a situation where they will never be able to feel that they are extrovert. They will become very, very cocooned in themselves. These labels mean nothing. People need to think that our brain is conditioned over time. And how do we unlearn from that conditioning is what makes us great. Most of the people, you pick any biography of anybody, thinker, business person, politician, actors, they have not had a linear life at all. I haven't picked a single person who's got a linear life, right? I mean, most linear people actually don't achieve much. Anybody who's achieved something that people talk about, they have always broken the mold. And that's what everybody should think about, because everybody can. If you take these labels that somebody else or the society has given you and you accept that is where the point of failure starts.
That's so interesting, because now if I think about it, I thought I was an introvert. Like, I used to stammer and stutter, and now if I go back and think about it, like, I never gave attendance until my master's. So even while I was going for my master's degree, whenever teacher used to take attendance, I never uttered basically present sir, present ma'am, because I used to stutter. I was very scared. But now here I am talking to you on a podcast which would be put out on the internet, and I really cannot believe this. And now when I think of it, I also used introvert as an excuse, but then I started putting myself into those uncomfortable situations. And as you rightly said, I broke the mold, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. So point taken, one should always put oneself in uncomfortable situations, right? And that's how you build that attitude. Because when you put yourself into those kind of weird situations, you basically outgrow yourself, and that's
Absolutely.
the best part.
The comfort zone is the worst enemy, more
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So, next point that I'd like to bring about is around humor and smile. What I've seen is a lot of people, whenever, especially when someone joins a new organization, right? At that point of time, what happens is he or she tries to crack a bunch of jokes just to get comfortable. And worse of all, when someone gets comfortable, they don't know where to draw the line, right? So it's very easy to offend someone, and you might not even realize, right? So throughout my career, obviously, we have seen so many people who don't know where to draw that line, but for some it's okay, for some it's not. Now here, there are how should someone approach this? In general, how can someone know that am I basically crossing the line or not? So, and then we'll talk about why humor is important. But before this, this is really the crux of it, where everyone struggles. Everyone struggles because you may crack an offensive joke. You may, because for you it's not, for someone else it is. Now, how do you strike that balance?
So, it's I always like people with smile. I think everybody likes people with smile.
Yeah.
You're traveling you're meeting a complete stranger. If they've got a smile, you suddenly feel comfortable.
Yes.
And somebody who's got a non-smiley, flat face or an angry face, etc., you just kind of take a step back, etc. So, smile is very important, and humor always is very good. Humor, some people have it, again, meaning they have the approach of life where they don't take things too seriously. And some people want to make an effort. As you said, in a new job, you arrive, you've got a new team, and you know that if you crack a joke, then maybe you'll make friends, and if you make friends, then everything will become easy. And you're right. These days, you do not know, because the diversity of workplace and diversity around in the world is so much, that you do not know what might be absolute innocent joke for majority of the people in the room, but one or two people in the room might find offensive because it is about their race, ethnicity, their background, whatever, disability, etc. Or it might just be bad taste for two people because of their own background, nothing to do with you or nothing to do with the scenario. So one key thing is always make a joke on yourself.
Oh.
If you do not know where to draw the line, right? And a lot of people don't know where to draw the line. So make a joke on yourself. So then if you are crossing the line, people will actually not get offended because you're joking on yourself. Make a joke on your own family, make a joke on your own self, not on other people, not on other people's ethnicity, not on something else that might be offensive to that group of people, that cohort of people. But if you're joking on yourself, then people can't really blame you for that, right?
Yes. This is such a nice hack. And this is specifically great during your early stint when you don't know folks, when you don't know where to do it. So first couple of months, crack jokes on your own situation rather than someone else, or worse, about the company. But
about
then
a
when
company
you
or
know
about a group of people or about ethnicity or
about a group of
nationality,
people, yeah.
never do on nationality, never do on religion, never do one of that. Do on yourself. But one thing you have to remember: if you're new in a situation, if you know people, then it doesn't matter. If you're a group of college friends, no problem, whatever you do, because they know you big enough, they're not going to judge you. When in a new company, I tell people that if you're cracking a joke on yourself, don't crack a joke in such a way that actually demeans your work or your skill. Because then people will actually take that for granted. Because they'll think, okay, if you say, I am very bad at something, then it will stick with them that you are bad at that. So you should try and do that. And easy thing is, stand in front of the mirror and crack a joke and see what happens. Record yourself. And a lot of people, this is another hack for people who don't know where to draw the line, is I tell them that, you should record yourself. These days, everybody's on mobile phones. You can record wherever. Record yourself and then listen back to that. And if you're listening back to it and you don't find it bad taste at all, then you are probably halfway there. Because 95% of the time, when you listen to yourself, you will realize what are you doing wrong. And most people just don't do that.
Yeah, most people don't record. themselves. But that's an excellent thing. Like earlier, we didn't have mobiles. We used to basically look at mirrors and basically rehearse speech, small talks that we are giving. But now we have mobile, which gives us like really good feedback, because you can play it all over again, rather than you while talking you have to absorb what you are saying. It just makes our life so simple. But
while talking, you cannot observe. While talking, because your brain is functioning in delivering it. Right?
Yes,
you're not consuming at that time. But recording and listening, that is consuming. And that is when you realize that, oh, I said it. If somebody else would have said it, I would have been offended a bit. Or they said something about, a city. There is always a banter between Bombay and Delhi, and London and Paris, and Paris and New York. Yeah. And once you say it and record it, it's such an easy way to figure it out.
Yeah. One thing that came up from this is like we like primarily having an ability to put ourselves into someone else's shoe is so important, because if you cannot think while wearing someone else's shoe, then you would never know when to draw that line, not just with respect to humor, but also with respect to customer and basically primarily whatnot. But having this having this ability to put yourself into someone else's shoe and analyze a situation is so important, like across life.
Absolutely. And the third piece I would say about the hack about the humor and cracking jokes is, if you keep the jokes on non-people, non-country, non-religion, etc., but even on others, things which are not, in terms of feelings, that's much easier. So you can make jokes about computers, you can make joke about laptops, you can make joke about mobile phones, and without bringing in the things which might be related to sentiments of people. Sentiments, being empathetic towards sentiments is very, very important.
And now I know why internet is filled with jokes on Jira. Everyone jokes about Jira, right?
Exactly. I mean, for me, there are like, I don't know, 5 million jokes about Microsoft. There are 5 million jokes about Google. You can do all that. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Even now, I feel even the folks at Atlassian don't feel bad about it.
I think they all find it funny. And with Twitter now these days, the memes and the jokes are becoming the easy way to break the ice.
Yes. Brilliant. Okay. So next up is about effective communication. Like, this is the most common thing that people think when they hear the term soft skills. It's about you trying to communicate effectively. Now, obviously, it depends on what you are trying to communicate, and there are basically multiple phases, and it's a very broad thing. But if you were to pick like 2 or 3 key things in order to deliver something effectively, like, you are a great speaker, no doubt in that. But now, if I were to ask you this, then what were those 3 pointers that you might want to give, like, that you ensure while you are delivering something that you are effectively communicating what you wanted to?
So effective communication can come in multiple shapes and form and multiple circumstances. And it's my pet word, and I think you're a friend with Ankush and Sunny as well.
Yeah.
And whenever they ask a question, I say there are 2 things. It depends, and it depends on the context, right? If you're in a work setting, particularly we are talking about engineering and stuff. So in engineering, if you are working towards a deliverable, and you have figured out that it is going to be very tight time, then committing that I will deliver on Tuesday when knowing very well that it's going to be really, really push is bad communication. What you should say, I will try my best for Tuesday. It is very tight, so we should have a buffer involved. When you communicate that, then you're in team, and your superiors or people who are dependent stakeholders, they all know that you are working towards Tuesday, but there is a caveat that it might not happen. Instead of you thinking in your brain that it actually needs 8 hours, and guess what? I've got this party. I have to go to this party. This is my friend's wedding. I will go there, but you know what? I'll find 2 hours and I'll do it. And that's how you're putting those 8 hours. That means you are actually effectively not communicating. Yeah. Because all these other things that you are in, you've not factored in something that might be an external thing that might happen to you. Maybe when you went for the wedding, you were not able to take 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you thought that you're gonna burn the midnight oil, and that night something happened with your child, and you had to take the child to a college or like whatever, and you were not able to find that extra hour. So it always depends, and it's contextual. But effective communication is always trying to be sensible and thoughtful of other people who are dependent on you. And that is universal. If your parents are dependent on you, you have to be thinking about that way. If your colleagues are dependent on you, you think about that way. And then if you start becoming thoughtful of other people who are dependent on you, your communication will start improving. Because now you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about other people.
So it's always about understanding the situation really well, and then trying to cover almost all possible cases before you basically try to pitch in.
Nobody can cover all possible cases, but you should think about, if I'm not able to deliver, what's going to happen? If the code needs to be committed today, push tomorrow. If I'm not able to commit today, the push date is going to be forward, which means you have to make sure that product manager is aware that it might not be pushed tomorrow. It's just courtesy. And people who do these kind of effective communication, they are generally the ones which people trust more and more. And trust is the biggest currency. Whichever way you work, trust is the biggest currency. And more effective communication you do, that trust comes to you in absolute loads. And more trust builds in, more you're able to get better comp, more you're able to get better, appraisals, the much faster growth in your career. Everybody wants to work with you. Everybody wants to hire you. And that's what people should think about, I think.
This is such an interesting perspective where two seemingly unrelated things, trust and communication, how they are so much intertwined. Primarily because like when you are very clear with your communication, where you are accepting that it might spill, because a lot of people are scared of accepting that, and it just builds massive trust that hey, it's okay because everyone makes mistakes, or maybe due to some unfortunate incident there is a delay. But in any case, this person is very clear about that there will be delay. He or she is not shying away, and that builds trust. And obviously, like this is something when I led a team, I expected from my engineers that in case there is a delay, I would not shout. There is no problem. Just communicate it with me, because I have to manage other stakeholders, right? And basically that's the key. You just have to ensure. And if I were to summarize this, like effective communication is all about putting everyone on the same page.
And so, my early startups, building the companies in the 90s, late 90s and early 2000s, I had one rule for everybody in the team. We were doing lots of product builds at a much breakneck speed. Absolutely. They were like any idea, and there was somebody assigned, and they would have to deliver an MVP, and then we'll pick up. So it was very, very fast paced. And if you think about it, this is pre.com era. Internet was new. Everything seemed to be like the fiction coming reality, and we all felt like we were in the matrix trying to make this fiction reality. Everything had to be delivered yesterday, and when that happens, there's a lot of pressure on all the engineering team, because they are, they are hired thinking they are smart, they are paid very well, and you put too much pressure on them. And I know that as a founder, I know that a lot of times I put undue pressure on them that you must do it, you can't go to sleep. Who cares if you've got this event at your family? I don't care. I need you to deliver. But one thing I used to tell them, that always remember, bad news must travel faster than the good news. So 100%. If something is going to fail and you can see it, then let me know that I can foresee this failure coming ahead, so that I can plan accordingly. For example, if I have trusted 5 people to deliver an MVP, and I've said to them, and I haven't told them anything else, but I'm talking to media and I'm saying this is a press release which should come out on this date. If they haven't told me that MVP is not going to be launched, my press release goes out, everything just falls apart.
True,
right?
True.
If they had told me 2 days in advance that this might be delayed, all I need to do is pick up a phone and tell my media guys, hey guys, please delay that press release by 2 days. So
and that's so apt. Bad news must travel faster than good news. That is such a simplistic way to put it. God, for me, this is eye-opening. I'm learning so much. Thanks for this. This is brilliant way to put it. Like bad news should travel faster than good news, and that's what it all boils down to, right?
Exactly.
Because people try to put in those extra hours just to avoid that bad news, and that becomes the root of all evil, right?
Exactly.
And if you just keep everyone on the same page, and in most cases it is about keeping everyone on the same page for the bad news, that solves a ton of problem, and that just makes you an effective communicator, right?
Yeah.
Nice. One thing that I'd like, one buzzword that I've heard a lot is basically being a good storyteller. Right? Now, what I've seen is like everyone wants to have good projects, everyone wants to innovate, everyone wants to work on something humongous. Right? Now, in that case, say I have an idea. I mean, I'm a normal engineer. I got an idea that, hey, we all should do something like XYZ PQR. I got an idea and I just want to pitch it. Now, when I say pitch it, like there is a way like I can weave a nice story around it and pitch it. I can just bluntly pitch it because no one wants to sound or like no one wants to hear to a boring story or a boring pitch, right? Everyone wants something interesting. You want to have them invested in your idea as much as you are, right? Now, if like you hear pitches every now and then, not just from founders, but also while you were leading teams, you like, what was that thing? Like what made a pitch a great pitch, right? With respect to project, with respect to company, with respect to anything. Like if you were to summarize that.
So pitching and storytelling, I mean, you probably heard of me last 2 years. I've been telling lots and lots of people about my 30-second pitches. And there have been books written about it, and there are courses about it, about storytelling. The movies are made about story. Movies are about storytelling.
Yeah.
But in context of work, more clarity of thought you have, more simplistic way you are able to tell people what is it that you're talking about. And I have a thumb rule. If it's pitching an idea, particularly in startup case and the engineering ideas case, it should be no more than 30 seconds that you should be able to relay your prime thought. Your prime idea should be conveyable in 30 seconds. It should be simple enough that a 10-year-old who doesn't know engineering can understand. So you can look around your nieces, nephews, your guy on the street, whatever, a 10-year-old kid. If the 10-year-old kid understands what you're talking about, that means that you have got the attention of the 10-year-old. If you can get the attention of a 10-year-old, if you can get the attention of somebody who has not done engineering or MBA or whatever, even like somebody who's illiterate, for example, that means you are now good enough to convey that to the wider world. Because what happens is, if you're able to convey something in 30 seconds to a 10-year-old, that person is interested now, and now that person is happy to give you 2 to 5 minutes of their time. And that 2 to 5 years of focused time is when you expand on that idea. But the basic idea should be given enough in 30 seconds to buy the 2 or 5 minutes. So anybody who's pitching the work, the project, the idea, the code, a problem, you could pitch a problem that, our code is this, but you know what, down the line, I can see this problem happening. That's a pitching your problem statement to somebody. Yeah. If you're able to convey that in 30 seconds, you should always think, how can I buy 5 minutes of their undivided attention? And this is all about buying attention, because today's world, attention deficiency is everywhere. Not because of any clinical situation, it's because we have so much to do in so little time, and there's so much of information overload. So pitching is about getting people's attention for 2 to 5 minutes undivided and getting them excited by the 30 seconds.
So what should constitute a pitch? The problem and a solution, or maybe a story, or what? Like if you were to split that 30 second into basically 2 or 3 fragments, what would that be?
So it could be problem, it could be solution, it could be just introducing yourself, it could be introducing your company, it could be anything. It depends, and it's contextual, and I keep on repeating this again.
Okay, let me add that. Let's say I have a product to pitch. Right. Now, what would you look at in that basically 30-second pitch?
Okay, so if you have a product, so either you can pick. There are 7 different types, right? You can either amplify the problem statement, so create a fear in somebody's mind, right? Or you could create a solution with a big enough target addressable market or big enough money behind it, right? So people like the honeypot. People like the honeypot, or people respond to their fear. So you have to figure out what is it that will give that person their attention. Is this person going to be influenced by my fear story? Is this going to be influenced by my honeypot story? Is this person going to be interested in my own capability story? And that's where you get it. So for example, if you take politicians, most politicians everywhere around the world address people's fear.
Yeah.
Right? Or a lot of the politicians also address people's hope. So they will say, if you choose me, the future is going to be that you will never have problem in relation to job search because I'll create so many jobs, right? So that's a hope scenario, the future scenario hope. Somebody will say, if you don't choose me, the opposition is a divisive person and your community will fail, right?
Yeah.
In the startups case, when they go to VCs and angel investors, all they say is, if you choose me, my idea is worth $1 billion, right? So you have to think, if you
sell hope or fear.
Yeah, you either sell hope or you sell fear, or you sell a potential of becoming somebody that you always wanted to be, either rich or famous or whatever else, right?
In terms of a software project, it could be a humongous gain into something.
Exactly. So, for example, if you think about around if you pick 20 random brand names that everybody talks about today, a lot of people forget that half of them were built in last 15 years.
True.
And people don't think. How many people actually think about which is the best brand of bed in your house? Not many, right? But if you say, name 10 brands, and people will start from, either the one what they wear or what they consume, whichever way they consume, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people just pick up the brands from Apple and Microsoft and Google, not realizing Microsoft is the only one which is the old company, really. Everybody else is like less than 20 years old company. So in context of, pitching, particularly for software, what is the problem it's solving? So if you picked up something like, everybody brushes their teeth in the morning and the toothbrush fails, it's now starting to becoming a boring story because people don't think it's a big enough problem, right?
Yeah.
If you pick in context, social media is becoming trouble for your children. I have a solution. Now you have elevated the people's interest because everybody knows that's a problem. Everybody knows they're going to face it. Everybody wants a solution for it.
Pretty interesting. Yeah. This is so well put, because now when I think of all the pitches that I have seen, or I got pitched twice for some reason, people think I can invest, but when I saw them pitching, this is exactly how they delivered it. Like, it was either fear or hope, and in general they just tried to capture my attention in first 30 seconds, and that's a brilliant way to put it. Okay, now you juggle between far too many things, right? And now this is one of the most common, or rather most famous buzzword out there: time management. Like, if I were to, or if primarily any engineer, any leader, anyone would want to do a better time management, what would it boil down to? Because I know you would have a one-line answer for that. What is that one thing that someone should focus on to, basically, what is that one thing that the entirety of time management boils down to?
2 words.
Yeah, I knew it.
Because you asked me, but you're going to do it in short, so I have to do it in short. And again, I'm proposing 30 seconds, so 2 words. You should always ask yourself, whatever you're doing, for what? What am I doing this for? Right? If you ask this question, for what, again and again and again, and you embed that as your thought process, as your psyche, you will start dropping things that are not important. And time management is more about dropping things that are not important than doing things that are important, because if you drop things that are not important, automatically you will focus on things that are important. And if you focus on things that are important, your time management will become easy. When you are young, it is very cool to say I'm very busy. When you're older, it is cool to say I have a lot of time.
Yeah, so true.
Right? So because our entire life, we acquire things, we acquire fame or wealth or whatever, because we want to be able to do what we really want to do. But if you start by trying to do what you really want to do, more likely you will have a much more balanced and happier life.
100%. It's so well put. For what? Before everything that we pick, for what? If it's worth it, do it. Yeah.
Many times we pick up, things because they make us happy, and that's absolutely okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times we pick things because our family told us, because our teachers told us, because our boss told us, because it is what everybody else is doing, rather than realizing it doesn't make me happy. So what's the point?
For what? That's a brilliant way to put it. For what? Like just asking this one critical question, and it solves a ton of problem. For what? No need to do it. What's urgent? What's important? This and that. For what? It just boils down to this. No need to have a four-dimensional thinking needed for this. Just ask for what. Brilliant.
But when the answers come back, right, for what, you will get sometimes vague answers. But more you ask the questions, you will realize your own 4 or 5 parameters of how you judge things.
Yes.
So you will realize, am I doing it for money? Am I doing it for fame? Am I doing it to please somebody else? Am I doing it because it brings happiness to me? And then over a period of 2 years, 3 years, you will realize what are the things you will prioritize, and you will automatically, then it will become an automatic thing that, whenever something comes in, you will give the right answer because your forward has already,
you are actually sorted in your head already about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. This is really good. And now while I'm talking to you, I'm actually thinking, for what?
For what am I talking to you? That's the question.
Yeah,
For what?
exactly.
But I know for what. I'll tell you my for what for doing this with you. First, I like you as a person. I've heard you a few times, right? I like you as a person. Second, for what is that I realize that your internal inherent desire is always to help people.
Yeah.
And I thought, if he's helping people, and if this conversation is going to help more people, that's my forward for this. And another third forward for me is to we've talked very randomly, very short period of time. This was my one way of getting 1 hour with you. So that's my 3 forwards.
Thank you so much, sir, for this. It's like, trust me, I've learned so much from you just by observing how you operate, and like it has changed me. And now this 1 hour time is basically worth its weight in gold for me. Like I've learned so much just by listening to you.
From me as well.
Okay. Okay. So one thing that I always believe now, like you actually brought up that topic where I like to help people, and one thing that when I led teams to primarily whatever capacity I could, I realized that when I help others succeed, which is when I succeed, right? But if I'm just helping others selflessly, right, and it might not transpire to be something substantial for me always, because there are always people who might rob us, right? In primarily whichever sense we may want to take it. Now, helping others is really critical. Now, let's first focus on the positive part of it. Like, I always believe helping others succeed is my way to contributing in their journey, number one. Second, my way to be a little more selfless. This way, I would put my team first, my organization first. If I'm always being very selfish, I would not look at it. Like, I would just think, hey, am I growing? And I would just skip doing all the mundane things, right? But sometimes you have to do the mundane things to to establish yourself, right? Because no one else is doing, why not you? So that's my way to look at it, like helping others, helping teams succeed, helping others succeed, helping the community succeed, helping teams succeed, helping organizations succeed. Like, what's your take on helping others?
Helping others is what we do all the time. We are social animals, right?
Yeah.
We 300,000 years ago we evolved from Serengeti, and we around the world. If you think about it, what is one thing that I ask people? What is one thing that you do which is not helping others? And people might say things like, "Okay, I sleep, I eat, etc., etc." But everything else that we do socially is always about helping others. Whether we're growing up, we are helping our parents do the tasks and chores, and our parents do that. They force us, you're going to get your pocket money if you do this. If you go to school and if you finish your homework on time, this is your reward. And somehow, starting from parents, then school, then our friends, then general society, there is a study done, and I can't find the name of it right now, but after this I'll probably send you a link. You can put it in the podcast.
Yeah, I'll do that.
That the dopamine effect, which gives you pleasure, the highest form of dopamine is when you help others with clear knowledge that you will gain nothing in back. That gives you the highest dopamine. That is why people psychologically, not knowingly, help other people. If you are standing at the corner of a road and there is a child or there is an elderly person struggling to cross the road, it is our instinct to go and help that person cross the road, because we know that our brain will give us a happiness factor so much that we can't get by even eating a chocolate, for example. And there is a whole psychological study about it, that helping others when knowing that nothing is going to be coming back makes you so much happier, and that's why we help others.
Maybe during younger days you are a little more selfish, but as you grow older, as you grow wiser, if I may put it, you basically tend to help others more. That's what I've observed. I might be completely wrong. Help more when I grow older. That's what because I've seen my father do a lot more charity than what he did when he was younger. My grandfather do even more.
But
and
what
they
about the
basically
children?
selflessly others.
Think about the children.
Don't. No, child are like child help everyone. When we are entangled in the society, in the moh and the maya of the world, then we are more like, hey, I need this, I need money, I need to do this. You become a little more selfish, but I may look at it as a normal distribution, where you are very selfless at first, you are very selfless at the later stage of your life, but you might see a peak of you being very selfish.
I don't think it's a selfish. I think the other way around. It's not selfish. When we are dependent on our parents and our teachers, right? So we don't have to fend for ourselves because they are fending for us. We normally help everybody. So children help each other.
Yeah.
All the time. They will go. They will have some competitive streak, etc. But they will help each other. When you become independent, when you're adolescent and you are trusted for you to make your own decisions. When you're trusted to make decisions for yourself, your brain's primary function is to protect you, right? Our brain's primary function is to protect us. So, not selfish as such, unless there is a selfish act. A lot of people do selfish acts as well. But generally, it is your brain trying to say, you know what, your time, your money, your knowledge, you protect it. Because if you're going to share your knowledge with other students in your college, guess what? You might not get that. You might not be ahead compared to them, right? So you're not being selfish against them. You are being protective of yourself.
That's a better word. Yeah. That's what I had to convey. Got it. Clear communication. Yeah. I'll do that.
So exactly. So it is majority of the time, majority of the people who we think in society are selfish or doing unkind things. If you scratch the surface, they don't even know that they are being unkind.
Yeah, they're just being protective of themselves
in a slightly non-empathetic way.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So maybe there was nobody around them to tell them that, hey, you can be empathetic and still protect yourself. If you have to say no to somebody, if somebody asks you in college, hey, can I share your notes? And you want to say no because you know that that person is very competitive and they will get their competitive advantage, and you want to say no, nobody taught them how to say no politely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can say no by being kind. You can share and think that sharing notes of your college is not the end game. End game is somewhere else in life, because college degree is a piece of paper. When you're 50-year-old, that will become so meaningless. Actually, when you're even 40-year-old, 30-year-old, that piece of paper is only good for you to get to the job interview.
Yes.
People don't realize that college degree is only worth you to get inside the interview room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once you're inside the interview room, that degree means nothing.
100%. Yeah. Now, when I think of it, even during college time, I never saw anyone else as my competition. Never. Like, for some reason, a lot of my peers never shared notes because of this exact same reason. But I used to spend hours helping them understand the concepts that I knew better. Right? And I was just like that from the beginning, because and actually one more thing for that is, while at school I barely passed my examinations, so I had no fear because I knew I just had to pass things, right? And that same attitude, like my attitude has always been towards learning, always, for some reason, like me learning new things and helping people learn stuff, right? And now that I think that when I was so selfless, but because I was explaining stuff, my understanding became much better in that subject. And that's what helped me answer some really difficult questions that I was asked in interview or maybe in real world scenarios.
Like, you just said something I was going to say. I don't want to interrupt. You continue your thought. Go
on, sir.
So there is the adult learning pyramid, right? And if you look about it, anybody can Google it. By listening, what do you retain, versus reading, what you retain, being taught, what you retain, and when you teach, what you retain. The highest retention of knowledge is when you teach it. That is why most knowledgeable people in the world are the teachers.
Yeah.
Right? And I think your mind may have unknowingly cracked this very early on in your life, that you have an insatiable desire to learn. It must happen in people, right? So if you have that insatiable desire to learn, you realize that if I'm teaching somebody, if I'm helping somebody, I'm learning better.
Yeah.
If you are saying the same concept to 3 people, those 3 people are asking you 3 questions. So now you have 4 questions that your brain has asked rather than 3. One only if you had only talked about yourself, if you had only done it yourself. And a lot of people don't realize it, that if you want to learn faster, start teaching.
Yeah.
And this is where education technology, if you think about, people say ed tech, majority of the ed techs in the world are only about teaching.
Yes.
They are not reinventing the curriculum. They're not reinventing the subjects. They're not reinventing anything. It's all they are doing is self-paced teaching by a peer-to-peer or one-to-many situation. They are becoming a platform to interconnect 2 sets of like supply and the demand. And a lot of people are not realizing that a lot of people who are teaching on these platforms are getting better and better at that skill, if they have understood the technique that I'm going to go there and not just repeat what I've learned as deliverable, but I'm going to take the feedback and then improve on it incrementally and then go back and deliver. People who will take this kind of feedback continuously and improve incrementally again and again and again, they will become experts in those fields. If you think about companies like Google and DeepMind and others, and a lot of the AI conversation that is happening right now, a lot of people who are working in machine learning and AI right now, all they have to do to the machine is to ask better questions.
Correct.
Or whatever question is asked, learn based on that so that your follow-on question answer is better quality than the previous one.
And that's exactly what we are used to. Like, so, and to be really honest, like when I started my cohort course, that's exactly like what I delivered in my first cohort, and now I am at my 16th cohort. What I deliver today, there is humongous difference, and my notes have evolved, the way I deliver has evolved, the way I basically cover the depth has evolved, because I was open to learning. I made mistakes in my first cohort. The kind of questions that people asked helped me revise my materials, and it became so good over time. And I love doing it. I love when people ask me questions because it just rewires my brain. It just basically and it helps me unlearn more than learning, right? And that's what actually for me it basically matters the most, when I have some belief in my head which I can just get rid of because it was wrong, and I was not aware of that it is wrong. It's the best feeling that I get. Yeah, I unlearned something and now I'm like relearning that stuff, and nice.
One thing you could do, as you said, you're on the 16th cohort now. So go back to the students of the 5th, 6th and 7th cohort and ask if any one of them is happy to take your 17th cohort again. Ask them the experience of what was it then and what's it now.
I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. Because I personally believe I've changed a lot during this entire duration, the way I cover things, the kind of depth, and it's just that I have more clarity, because what I've observed is, for me, I ask basic feedback after every session. What I got every time, like in my recent cohorts, the kind of feedback that I got is, people write this, they say that I had some questions, but you already answered it in the next slide. Which means that I can put, like, basically kind of over the duration, the kind of questions that folks from 5th, 6th, 7th cohort ask, it helped me revise the material, which is now auto answering the questions that the folks who are part of my 16th cohort have. And it's just that I'm basically learning it better. Like, I'm basically covering it all without having a need for them to ask questions. But obviously there are new set of questions that are there, and they are very different from what questions that were asked in my previous cohort. But excellent. And the world of AI right now is actually doing that. We are all being now trying a bunch of prompts, ChatGPT per se, that how can I ask better questions to, and it is very evident that when we ask better questions to AI, it is giving us better answers. If we ask stupid questions, we get stupid answers.
Absolutely. There are tons of groups set up around the world right now. And believe it or not, people are charging to tell you to write better prompts to ChatGPT. I mean, who would have
new
thought?
Business model.
Exactly. When people used to say, everybody's heard, we don't know what is the job of 2050, right? So who would have known in 2020, not 2000, not 20 years ago, but 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Not even 2, 6 months ago. Who would have thought 6 months ago that there is a job where if you have skill to ask better question, then you can sit in your garage, open a web page and ask people, say, pay me $50 and I will tell you better questions to ask to ChatGPT. That job did not exist 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the world is about asking better questions.
So mind-blowing to think even about it. Yeah, it's all about asking questions now.
Yeah.
Nice, interesting. Okay, we spoke, like, we basically digressed a bit, but it's fine. We had fab conversation. Now let me come back to the new things. Like, given that we spoke about world is changing, everyone needs to adapt. Now this becomes the biggest, like, it becomes one of the most important soft skills that one must have, like not being rigid to a certain ideology, to a certain concept, to a certain tool, framework, like in you being a little more flexible for you to survive, because world is extremely fast paced, extremely fast. Like you just said, 6 months ago, no one imagined this kind of job would exist or something that would give you handsome amount of money. And now here we are in the world of AI, right? Here we are with the world of basically all the chat GPTs and lambdas and whatnot. So things are evolving. We need to keep ourselves adaptable. Like how should we approach this? As simple as that.
Well, adaptability is one of the most important things because change is the constant. Whether we are looking at change in our society, whether we are looking at the way we learn, the way we teach, the way we consume data, the way we interact with people, all this is changing constantly. And if you think about it, I mentioned it to somebody yesterday that for somebody who's 80-year-old, which is basically my parents, for them, so many science fiction things have become reality. It's not funny, right?
Yeah.
For them, having a mobile phone was science fiction as a child. For them, having a television was a science fiction. Having, internet is science fiction. Wirelessly charging your phone, absolute science fiction.
Absolute science fiction. Yeah.
Right. Converting sunlight to electricity is science fiction. Wi-Fi is science fiction.
And it's just 80 years.
Yeah, in the last 80 years, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are carrying a laptop with you is a science fiction. Ability to sit in one airport and 13 hours later arriving in a completely different continent, different city, different etc. Semi-science fiction. Their life has been completely turned from when they were children versus today. And that time, technology was not fast enough, right? Imagine the children from today. The technology is fast. Cloud computing exists.
Yeah.
When these people are 50-year-old, amount of change that might happen is scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
Right?
True.
So, if you're not adaptable, that means you're setting yourself for failure. So you should always be fluid in the way you think, what you believe in. You should not believe something with permanence, I think. Because when people believe
100%.
something with permanence, that means you're conditioning yourself to not unlearn something. So in coding, for example, if you think the logic way to deliver a certain piece of code is the right way to do it, then you are slightly wrong, because there is no right way. What is right way is based on your limitations of thinking today. But tomorrow, I mean, for example, 10 years ago, who would have thought the serverless architecture and no code programming was possible?
Yeah.
Right?
We
wanted it, but we didn't think it was possible. Right? My children today, they can create games, video games, by drag and drop.
True.
If I'm not open that there will be something even better than this, if they are not open that tomorrow there could be even better where they can just think and their thought process can actually create a game, if they don't think that's possible, then they're setting themselves for failure. What they should think is, if today I'm able to type something and drag and drop with my mouse, how can I convert? If Wi-Fi is possible to transfer data from my laptop or from my my modem router to my mobile phone, that means there is a wavelength which is transferring from in the air. There's a wavelength which is converting that data and transferring to a receptor.
Yeah.
So how can it not be possible that my brain can generate that wavelength and the person opposite or the device in front of me can become a receptor of that wavelength and deliver a command?
Neuralink.
I mean,
True.
technically it's possible, right? It's just a minute.
Yeah.
And there is enough scriptures and there is enough science fiction stories to say that is possible.
Yeah. 100%.
In terms of your point, original point about adapting to change, we should have an open mind that possibilities are endless. And if possibilities are endless, then I should be absolutely fluid to accept the change, adapting a new tech stack, adapting to a new environment, my current team might be non-diverse, but tomorrow my team might be very diverse. And I'll give you an example. For example, for in this context, in London, if you go on a board meeting, in a random board meeting which has 10 people, it is very likely that you will have 4 or more nationalities sitting on that table. Right?
Okay.
If you have 4 or more nationalities or 5 ethnically diverse people in a board of 10 people, of course they will bring ideas which are different to each other.
Yeah.
And if you are willing to accept diverse opinions, then you know that you are on for better things. Your company is going to be better, your organization is going to be better, your tech stack is going to be better, your code is going to be better.
Yeah.
If you're able to think like a Frenchman and an American and a British and an Indian and a Japanese and a Korean and a Chinese, of course, because they think differently. They have different experiences from background. They have different language. They have different ways to solve a problem. So if you're talking to 5 different people and you're accepting this diversity,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm back. I knew it was going to happen because your screen had frozen for last 2-3 minutes, and I thought, it's going to just disconnect. No worries. Anyways, I know that we are going longer, so I'm going to cut it short. That's the, you have to always be adaptable, because that's the only way you'll find solutions that you didn't think was possible.
True. Being adaptable, especially in this day and age, extremely critical. But just like, in order to know how to do it, is it like, according to me, it's all about having that desire to unlearn and relearn. You having a willingness to put in that effort in order to do it. Like if the world is going towards AI and you are not willing to put in an effort to learn AI, that's your rigidity, because of which you are basically setting yourself up for a failure. Right? But thanks so much.
Exactly. And I tell people that you don't have to
you
learn
don't.
everything. This is going back to your time management. You have to figure out what do you need to say no. If you are a developer who is very proficient in one kind of tech stack, you should try and focus that, can I become an expert in this? I don't have to learn every technology in the world.
True.
Nobody can, right? You don't have to think, okay, as long as you understand the basic concepts and you are focused on one, that's great. Somebody says, I'm a cloud engineer and I can do, irrespective whether you are Google Cloud or AWS or Azure, I can do everything. I would rather not choose that person compared to somebody says, what is your stack? If your stack is Google Cloud, you know what, I'm an expert and I've been doing it for 5-7 years and I know everything because I spend 4 hours learning about it every week, and I unlearn things that I don't, that are not relevant anymore. So all kind of combinations exist.
I just want to end on this high note of adaptability. I know we had few other points to cover, but this is so good. We just always end on a high. But this adaptability point on how world is so fast moving, and especially the rate of change is increasing, and which is what should make people fall in love with being adaptable. Should make people be open to unlearn and relearn. Right. But thanks so much, sir. I just want to stop here because this is on such a high note that we are ending, and I just want to respect your time as well on that. But thank you so much, sir, for doing this. It was really eye-opening for me. I learned so much, irrespective, and I'm sure everyone else who would listen to this would love it. I'd try my best to write as catchy of a social media post as I can while posting it. I want folks to listen to this. Sure. Thanks so much, sir.
Arpit, thank you so much. You're very kind. You're very generous with your words. But thank you.
Thanks so much for doing this, sir.